Hi there, everyone. Clear my throat and welcome you to this latest edition of the ALT Community Call, where I'm very pleased to be joined by John Couperthwaite from PebblePad. Hi, John. How are you? Let me just unmute you. Oh, sorry, John. It seems to have muted you. I don't know if you want
Okay, can you
to.
hear me now?
But there we go.
It was
I
just down to
love
my
love these
maybe.
hangouts.
Okay, hi Martin, how are you?
Good, thanks. So
Great.
it's the roll the dice. If you get a six, you can start a hangout. Okay, I think we got a 5.5 there.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so anyway, John, welcome to our latest Alp community call. Just before I go and let you introduce yourself, just to remind people that they can tweet questions in on the #AltC hashtag on Twitter, or if you go to the Google Plus event page, you can also do question and answer as well. So, John, for people not familiar with you, can you just give us a bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Okay, well I work for PebblePad. I work as a consultant with PebblePad, and that's very much around supporting customers, obviously with their use and through training and through conversations and kind of just checking in on people. Also doing a lot of kind of work around how the technology is relevant and is working with the educational community and looking to see what new areas we need it to be exploring and what developments need to occur. So I also work with people who are kind of wanting to know more about a tool such as PebblePad, which has changed so much over the years. So it's kind of changing people's conceptions of what it is, and looking to see whether it might be relevant for them in their institutions. So I usually work across higher education, but sometimes elsewhere, and also I kind of just organise lots of things through community events as well for the company. But prior to PebblePad, which is about 18 months ago, I worked for a long time at the University of Birmingham as an educational technology manager, and pretty much in the medical school and dentistry, pharmacy, nursing, and physiotherapy, and supporting all of that. So it's only recently I've kind of moved over to this the vendor, the supplier, the dark side, whatever you want to call it, and it's fantastic. It's an interesting perception of kind of the same sector, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you how having worked for a university now with a commercial provider and quite recently as a commercial provider, can you? I suppose the differences are more apparent right now. What kind of the main things that you see in your new role?
Well, I mean, I've got the fortuitous position of being able to see lots of different universities all kind of trying to tackle the same problems. And at first I thought, am I going to be really, really interested? I've been moving from lots of products in one institution to one product, and talking about that one product with lots of institutions. But, the reality is PebblePad touches into so many different areas of people's educational provision that I can still have the same conversations. I'm still interested in how the VLE works, the lecture capture systems work, the response word systems work. So I find it fascinating, and the beauty is that I can kind of start to share as well examples of good practice, bad practice, whatever I come across with people as I'm talking to them, and either at the conferences or just at institutional meetings. So it's a very nice way of being able to just kind of mingle and talk about things that I'm passionate about.
You mentioned there that you get the opportunity to see what's going on across the sector, and something from the ALT annual survey that was published this week is the increased importance in data and analytics, and obviously today we're focusing on making sense of learning analytics. And I just wondered what, having seen, various institutions, I'd imagine trying to tackle this. What do you see from that?
Well, I see a lot of people trying to tackle it from the institutional perspective, and I think that was very much my feeling at University of Birmingham. It was looking at retention, it was looking at the NSS, and it was looking to try and sort of aggregate bits of data. And we'd recently moved to Canvas, Instructure's Canvas VLE, which had some very interesting learning analytics. But since moving to PebblePad almost on day one, I think in fact it was day one, it was, by the way, did you know we've got this new tool that we're just about to release that does a whole load of other things, and that was a kind of a nice, pleasant surprise. So I've been working around that sort of development and release and kind of bit of training and kind of raising people's awareness of it. And that's kind of alerted me to the fact that a lot of what we see around learning analytics and a lot of the conversations that are happening is about how to sort of arrest these kind of problematic areas and how to make sure, i.e. making sure that students are happy in their course and therefore likely to stick around. But my interest has been more around possibly the sort of the intervention side, but kind of moving it into squarely the educational framework and making sure that we're thinking about how the educators can really take the data that's going to be made available to them and use it more purposefully. There's a danger, I feel, that it's kind of getting stuck in the kind of, almost for me, the hygienic side of things and just making sure that we're kind of doing the basics well. And I want to make sure that the conversation kind of keeps moving on from there into these sort of areas that we know in our heart of hearts we want it to kind of get to. And obviously to make sure that things are working, we need to make sure the data is integrated, we need to make sure we've done it well, obviously covering the ethical areas. But then we need to think, well, what do the educators want from this? And that's where kind of, whilst I've been working with this tool called Flourish, which sits alongside PebblePad, we've been looking at kind of, well, what data could we start to be pulling into into Flourish to allow then people to be able to make sense of what they're learning and have that conversation then in a secure and a private space with some other person, and use that to then inform how they're going to develop and learn in the future. So taking the concepts of feeding forward more than kind of feeding back, and allowing them to have the tools in a single environment which has their learning, which has their communication, as well as the data and the interactions with a tutor or a guide or a mentor to take that forward. And so really kind of we're at an early stage, I suppose, in terms of where this is at, and I'm not kind of claiming to be an authority on it. I would never say that, but it's interesting how I haven't really seen any other sort of approaches of a similar vein. I keep looking around thinking I'm going to find out there's some great thing out there that I've completely missed, and I wouldn't say that PebblePad have cracked it, but I'm interested in that conversation about how we can actually make better systems to use learning analytics in education.
What the scenario you're describing is, very much hands-on, frontline use of data and analytics, and I think one of the challenges is that you also mentioned that the institutional drive to do something in this space, and I just how are you tackling that within PebblePad? Is it a case of finding small groups of academics that you in your program that you can trust, or are you searching for other people to give you feedback?
We are trying to sort of collaborate very closely with the IT teams, the e-learning teams, to make sure that when we do this, we do it from a kind of an institutional perspective. We're pulling in good quality data from the VLEs or the student information systems. And for us, that's kind of important. It's critical, really, that we get good quality buy-in at that level rather than trying to deal with sort of program level data. Obviously, program level data is great, but really the conversations have to be had at a higher level, I think,
right.
to make sure that certainly that it's kind of they're fully aware, and hopefully more institutions are becoming more aware around how to effectively collate this kind of data, and then obviously the concerns of addressing the concerns of students about how it's going to be used effectively. So, like I said, we're sort of in early days. We have a tool that can kind of consume these things, and as we're starting to use it, we're now having more and more conversations with institutions about the kind of data that we can start to pull into it and to use. So I am interested in how people, the kind of information that people are telling me about what information is particularly relevant for an educator, rather than for a traffic lighting system of kind of people failing or struggling. I'm more interested about what are the kind of data sets that will inform the level of progress and what more needs to be learnt from students in different ways. And we currently kind of collect competency data and grade data. We're also collecting lots of kind of conversational data as well. Obviously, we need to kind of understand better about what does all of that look like. We don't want to present staff and students with all of that information in too open a fashion, because it's going to be too complicated. So we're interested in how to parcel that up into things that are meaningful without it being reduced down, I guess, into a traffic lighting kind of way. It needs to be sort of more open information that can inform a conversation that can be taken forward, because obviously there's so much ambiguity potentially in the detail of this data that we need to then allow the tutors and the students to unpick that and make sense of it together.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds like a huge challenge, though. Are there any particular approaches that you're looking at in terms of how to do that? So, you mentioned that you're perhaps trying to stay away from traffic lights or dashboards. Or are there anything emerging?
I mean, we're very interested in the new work by JISC, obviously, as in terms of creating a sort of a more consistent aggregation of data across institutions. That works really, really well for us. And from our sense, it's very much around then if we can kind of connect to something of that nature at an institutional level, and I'll be allowed to then pull data into this conversational space, which is what Flourish is, which can obviously connect then the tutors, the mentors, the supervisors with the student. That makes a huge amount of sense. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're drawing upon the expertise of the entire community and then using our tool to pull it in and then do what we think is valuable from our perspective. Obviously, from other contexts, there'll be other ways of using that data, which is equally valuable to other people.
Are there any big roadblocks you see right now in terms of data interoperability? Is it all the mess, really?
I don't think so. I think it depends how well institutions really buy into this initiative. I think there's a better possibility of it succeeding. I think if there is a nationwide approach to it, and I think that's certainly JISC in a strong place there. I've seen that in Australia that they're trying to tackle it in a very similar way as well. So I think it lends a lot more credibility to the data stored there, and clearly we can learn lessons, I guess, from the NHS and their data backbone and all of that, and how that is challenging bringing in data from disparate sources and trying to present it in a kind of holistic kind of sense, and how that really stitches together is perhaps somebody else's problem at the moment, and I'll leave that in their hands. But I think from our sense, we're looking to consume a good quality data set that is relevant for the educators, and I think I'll be kind of probably trying to liaise more with JISC in terms of trying to get good quality data from that sense.
So, is there anything else in the kind of analytics data area that's particularly caught your eye recently?
Well, I mean, we are very I mentioned around sort of competency-based analytics as well, and sometimes it's a dirty word in some streams of education. We don't want to reduce everything down to just tick boxes, but the reality is a lot of the programs that we engage with, it is very much around sort of the recording of competencies against professional frameworks across health and sport and education and other programs. And so a lot of the work that we're doing is trying to sort of find formats to aggregate that, to make that available for staff and for students, make it easier for them to understand very quickly the stages that they're at. Again, referring to the GIST work, I mean, we've got our own mobile app that we're looking to push notifications to. At the moment, it's very much around capturing offline use and be able to push it into the portfolio as and when they've got a connection. But we're looking to push information out. So certainly, for our sense, our sort of perspective, if we can be capturing and presenting a lot of this competency-based information, sort of a quick win for us, because it lends itself very quickly to just having a very simple chart or table just to sort of highlight where you're at compared to the entirety of what you're expected to collect through the course of your studies. And so that's something we're looking at through our new sort of dashboard of data that we're going to be presenting in our new version that's coming through, HTML5 version, but also obviously through our mobile app. It's a nice way of just obviously taking the data that we've got and just pushing it out there. We've known that we need to do that for a long, long time, and now we're playing catch up, I think, on some of the VLEs and other systems that are doing it pretty well at the moment.
You mentioned HTML5, so Helpad, obviously previously it was built on Flash, which seems to be falling out of fashion. Is there anything, and this is probably a selfish question on my behalf, because I'm interested in the nuts and bolts, but is there anything within HTML5 that gives you more flexibility or more things that you can do with the new version of Helpad you're working on that you weren't able to get before?
I think it's just the cross-browser support is so critical for us. I think a lot of what we're expecting, asking students to do, is to work kind of and reflect kind of in practice rather than on practice later from their bedrooms on their desktops. And that's very hard to do if network coverage is poor or you're carrying a tablet around. So I think it's critical for us that we've moved now, and we've so pleased actually that we've got a really good product that it's already in North America, it's already in Australia. Right. So we're happy that we kind of the UK market, we're pretty happy it's going to get covered and be supported pretty soon. Beyond that, I think we've had conversations with people talking around things like webhooks and X APIs and all sorts of things. So people are wanting to pull data out of our system as well, and that's very exciting to me because I think that's wonderful. We shouldn't just be the ones who are saying, give us all your data and everyone should use ours. I think I'm very open to this idea of exchanging of information for other systems, and again, that's obviously will feed into other work by JISC and others and institutions. And I like the idea of just being able to just use these very simple interfaces, just be able to capture information. Clearly, there's a lot of science that needs to go into what is relevant. But that really excites me, and I'm sure sort of for us with HTML5, it's a completely different kind of ethos as well to developing things. We can do things a lot quicker and easier, and link into other systems as well, much better.
So quite a few people might actually recognise your face for your involvement within Alt in other ways. In terms, you're on one of our operational committees. Membership and Development Committee, right? And also you have helped establish a new membership group.
Yes, and actually the interest of both of those arose out of University of Birmingham, but sadly I was never really given the opportunities to engage more fully with Alt whilst I was there, and that's perhaps something that people will relate to in some of their institutions. But this is one of the advantages about kind of moving to a company like PebblePad. They kind of said, no, we really value that engagement with the community. We want to stay relevant. If you're willing to put the time and effort in, then please do it, And so I've taken advantage of that, and it is really, it's a real eye opener. I think it's one of these that I at the weekend I sail at a local sailing club, and it's very much a community-based club. I used to be in one where they had paid staff, and you expected just to take from this club. Now I'm with the community sailing club. We can, I get more from it from actually contributing more, and it's the same with Alt. Actually, the more you put in, the more you get out. I've only been on the group for a short amount of time. I put my hand up after last year's Alt C, but already I learned so much from people, and okay, people might be cynical and say, well, okay, that's taking it for PebblePad, but the whole idea is actually just being a conduit for information and sharing that, and that's what I like to do through Twitter. So I've always acted through Twitter and like to sort of be involved, just to again keep myself as part of that community. And I don't think it really matters really which institution you're at or which company you're at, because actually the community should just be able to be open and supportive of each other, and that's really what I enjoy, really, I think, from what Alt is offering me at the moment.
We have a couple of kind of standing questions.
Oh, okay.
In the community call. So we've kind of covered one of them, is your involvement of Alt in Alt, but the other one is your first memory of Alt. Can you think? Is that quite a recent thing, or?
It was always of the Alt conferences, which I was never given the funds to attend. So it was always this mythical thing that was out there that I thought I would have all the answers if I ever did attend the conference. And so it was a pleasure a few years ago that I did go to. I think was it in Nottingham, maybe. But yes, it was that. I mean, the other one that just kind of is etched into my heart was around CMALT, and probably for about 6 years I told my line manager that I would complete my CMALT as part of my professional development, and it always got overtaken by other concerns, and yes, but finally when I did it, it was again another sort of light bulb moment of thinking, yeah, this actually was good, and I tried to drag the rest of my team into doing it, because I think my concern as an educational technology manager with lots of developers and other people, I was getting tired of them coming to me through their sort of staff development reviews saying, I want to learn a bit more code, or I want to kind of do this bit of activity, and I was saying, no, we need some sort of formal accreditation of what we're doing to kind of for ourselves, but also for the people we work with. We owe it to them. So I'm passionate now about finding formal ways of accrediting ourselves as practitioners in this community, because I think it's particularly weak at the moment. At least CMOT gives us a foothold in that, and in a more formalised way that's being peer reviewed.
And portfolio based.
And portfolio based as well, which I have to confess, mine was on paper. Yeah, somebody did comment from PebblePad about why was it not in PebblePad. It could have been Shane who mentioned that, but yeah, no, I think it does lend itself entirely, and yes, it should be portfolio based.
It's interesting. Obviously, I'm slightly biased as being, I'm not an employee, but it seems increasingly. And I think this was something as well that kind of came out of the annual survey, was that whilst a lot of staff put a low priority on, employment incentives and probably less of a low priority is staff development and training. These are kind of big movers in the last year in terms of increasing importance. And a lot of conversations I have with people at institutions is, that very thing of how do you support your staff with professional development in learning technology in a structured and useful way.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, people are now using PebblePad. They could use other portfolio tools, but around supporting staff with UK PSF and obviously accreditation to the HEA. we're talking about it to support employability for students. So, particularly around the HERE, which recently sort of done some work at the University of Liverpool, so they can use a portfolio-based approach to evidence their co- and extracurricular activities. But the same is true really about sort of just trying to drill down into any program about what kind of graduate skills people are working towards, and being able to record those, to evidence those, to present those. And so I find, I took away as well from the ALTS report that kind of e-portfolios are kind of also on the rise. It's probably not as high at the moment as learning analytics, but certainly that's the feeling that we're seeing, that institutions are saying that they need an e-portfolio solution of some format. And they're obviously, they do take a variety of different forms, across institutions and across the country. But for us, it very much is around that sense that the VLE can offer a certain formats for presenting information and allowing people to interact with tutors, but for us it's very much around the individual getting the ability to collect materials and to be able to give that to different people at different times, and really sort of develop themselves on that learning journey and really put themselves at the heart of it, and to give them the tools to just allow them to own something for the duration of their time at university and beyond. So that's where we feel it's still sort of a growing sort of area of, and that's what keeps it really, really interesting for me. It's kind of growing in its relevance.
Yeah, the electronic management of assessment, it has it's starting to really pick up now, but just thinking back a couple of years, you had all this wonderful rich feedback, but it was basically in different little boxes, and you didn't having it in one box would have been nice.
It would. I mean, I'm still sort of keen for, we talked about integration earlier, but I'm keen for things like social media sort of integration, and looking to see how that can be done really, really well. And I spoke at the Sheffield Hallam University conference before Christmas on social media in higher education, looking to see what portfolios could offer there. I'm particularly keen to make sure we do it well, and rather than it just being a sort of a Storyfy solution where you can just aggregate a whole load of things and say, look, this is me, or this is what I'm interested in. Actually, you take a more considered approach, and you can get things which are evidenced and verified, and then kind of you can present those in your portfolio, so you can pull things in and show them to others, and reflect upon them, contextualize them, and then show them. But equally, when you're presenting something, we allow the portfolio to be presented in different ways to different social media platforms, such as LinkedIn, and that would be a lovely way of getting people to continue their educational experience, but also present it then to the job market, and in a properly verified and credible format. Interesting.
In that space, the conversation seems to automatically lead on to things like open badges. Is that something that you see as a solution for that particular aspect?
It is. I mean, it's something we've got built into the system, and we used it on a MOOC. So Sheffield Hallam University actually ran they've run a MOOC on prostate cancer. They've run one very recently on end of life care, using PebblePad as a platform. So I was thrilled by that. So that was and they were using open badges in that, just to obviously incentivize, but also give them something to take away as a kind of evidence of their CPD. I mean, I love that simply because it spans the educational community, but also took it into healthcare and everyday lives. So there was people from, there was patients, there was their carers, as well as kind of clinicians and academics and current students, all on the same MOOCs. And for me, that's really where the MOOC has the real value in crossing over into those other sectors, other walks of life, but linking in the quality of and the rigor of academia with these other subject areas. So that was fascinating. But yeah, open badges is something that I really do believe. That's a nice example, I think, of how open badges can be kind of purposefully used rather than just as kind of small tokenistic kind of ways of evidencing something. but it's something we're exploring and building more on, and hoping to learn more from events like in Southampton.
Well, funny you should mention that. I'm dragging myself down there to speak about some of the work Alt has been doing with Broken Badges. So,
well, I'm dragging myself down there as well yeah.
Well, we can. I have to unfortunately cut this conversation short here, but obviously the both of us can continue this at Southampton, if not online. So, John, thank you very much for joining us today for this call. Before I say goodbye, a couple housekeeping things. So, a couple of things for people watching just to have in their heads or calendars is OER 16 is in April this year. So, registration, the early bird actually closes on the 6th of March. So, if you want to register, if you're an alt member, though, the good news is the early bird continues up until the conference. So one of the small benefits of being an alt member. Some other bits and pieces. It's Open Education Week next week, and Alt's Open Education Special Interest Group have a number of webinars running. So you can check the Open Education SIG website for details of those, or the Alt events page. And the Alt Annual Conference is coming up as well. So if you want to join us in Warwick in September, the call for proposals is out. So get busy. Just quick, John, will you be submitting anything for Alt-C this year?
I very much hope so. Now, hopefully on this subject, I had a ring around a few people before I did this today, and actually presenting some kind of workshop together with a few other people interested in this area would be high on my list of priorities at the moment. So I'm hoping to get something in on this and talk around the educational use of learning analytics.
Well, that sounds great. I hope you do get that in.
I want to.
And finally, just say we've got our call next month, and we've got Catherine Cronin joining us. So Catherine is keynoting at OER 16, so she's giving us a bit of an insight to what she does, and she's also involved in ILTA, which is a similar organisation in Ireland. So we'll be finding out about that. So John, once again, thanks you very much for joining us today. And yes.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take care.